My best friend and my wife? I never expected both to betray me. I wasn't supposed to come home early that day. That single change in my schedule shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. My name's Donald. I've been married for 8 years and best friends with the same guy since college. If you asked me a month ago who I trusted most, I would have said my wife and him, without hesitation. That's what makes this whole story feel like a punch to the chest every time I think about it. That evening, I walked into the house expecting an empty living room. My wife had said she was out shopping, and my best friend had told me he was working late. But as soon as I stepped through the door, I heard laughter, hers, and another voice I knew too well, his. First I froze. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe they'd bumped into each other. Maybe it was something I could laugh about later. But the universe doesn't play that nice. They didn't hear me come in. I stood in the hallway listening. The tone wasn't friendly, it was intimate. Too intimate. I didn't barge in. Not yet. I backed out quietly, got into my car, and sat there in silence, trying to process what I just heard. Couldn't. For days after that, I convinced myself it had to be a misunderstanding. I told myself I was overthinking. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew fast. I started paying attention, watching for signs. And that's when everything started to unravel. She started going out more. He stopped answering my calls as quickly. The way they acted around each other, it changed. Subtly. But I felt it. Every interaction felt like a performance. Like they were trying too hard to seem normal. Still, I didn't confront either of them. I needed proof. I began to do things I never thought I would. Checked her location history. Scrolled through texts when she left her phone charging. Started asking casual questions I already knew the answers to, just to see if she'd lie. And she did. One night, she told me she was out with her sister. But the photos I found on her phone told a different story. One with wine glasses, dim lighting, and him sitting across the table. Laughing. Leaning in. Her hand touching his. I stared at the photo for what felt like an hour. My heart pounding in my ears. There it was. The confirmation. It hit me like a freight train. My wife and my best friend. Together. Behind my back. The betrayal was too big to wrap my head around. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just him. It was both of them. Two people I loved. Trusted. Defended. Two people I would have taken a bullet for, choosing each other in secret while I played the fool. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move. I just sat there with my thoughts, feeling every layer of my world peel away. How do you process something like that? How do you even begin to confront it? I knew I couldn't react emotionally. That's what they'd expect. I needed to be calm, precise. I needed to make them feel the weight of what they'd done. And the first step was setting the trap. I started with distance. Not physical, I couldn't afford to make them suspicious. But emotional. I pulled back just enough to observe without setting off alarms. My wife noticed, of course. She asked if I was stressed, if something was wrong at work. I told her I was tired, that I needed space to think. She bought it. Maybe because she wanted to believe everything was fine. Or maybe because she didn't care anymore. Every word out of her mouth started to feel like poison. And every time I saw his name pop up on my phone, my skin crawled. I didn't respond to his messages. He asked if I was free to catch a game, but I knew what he was really doing, trying to keep up appearances. I replied once with a simple busy and let the silence stretch. If he noticed, he didn't show it. They were both too confident, too comfortable. So I let them stay that way. I began documenting everything. Screenshots, locations, times. I even installed a discreet camera in the living room, one of those little hidden ones that looks like part of a speaker. Felt wrong at first, like I was doing something shameful. But then I reminded myself, I wasn't the one cheating. I wasn't the one breaking vows and destroying trust. I was just finally seeing the truth for what it was. 3 nights later, I caught it. She told me she was staying over at her sister's to help with the kids. That night, I got a motion alert from the living room camera. When I opened the feed, there they were, sitting together on the couch. Too close, her legs curled toward him, his hand on her knee, laughing. whispering, then kissing. Not just a peck. It was long, familiar, like it had happened 100 times before. I sat in my car in the driveway watching them on my phone. My own wife, my best friend, kissing on the couch I had picked out, in the home I had built, like I didn't exist. I wanted to kick the door in. I wanted to scream, to grab him by the collar and ask him what the hell happened to brothers for life. I wanted to demand answers from her. About when it started, how long it had been going on, how she could look me in the eye every morning knowing what she was doing. But I didn't. Instead, I recorded it, saved the footage, backed it up to 2 hard drives. One copy in my car, one on the cloud. I wasn't just going to catch them, I was going to control the moment they realized I knew. They didn't deserve a warning. They didn't deserve a soft landing. The next day, I acted normal. I kissed her good morning. I texted my friend, a meme we would have laughed about a month ago. I played dumb and they played their roles. But inside, I was unraveling. I barely held it together at work. Every client meeting, every phone call, every email, it all felt fake. My mind was somewhere else. At night, I lay beside her in bed, pretending to sleep while her phone buzzed softly. I didn't need to check anymore. I already knew. But knowing wasn't enough. I needed them to feel it, to understand what they had destroyed. I made a plan. I invited him over for a barbecue, just like old times. Told him I missed our hangouts and wanted to catch up. Told her I thought it'd be nice to have some company. She smiled, said she'd grab wine and snacks. No suspicion, just excitement, as if they couldn't wait to be in the same room again. They thought they were winning. They had no idea I was the one setting the stage. And the moment they walked into the backyard, together, laughing, thinking they were safe, I was already holding the remote to the projector screen I had mounted behind the garden wall. Because sometimes, betrayal deserves to be exposed in full view. The backyard was quiet, just the way I wanted it. I kept the lights low, the fire pit glowing softly, music playing in the background like any normal evening between friends. She was laughing, glass of wine in her hand. He was grinning, flipping burgers on the grill like it was some kind of reunion. They had no clue what was coming. No idea that every second of their comfort was about to be torn away. I smiled, nodded along, played the perfect host. Inside, my hands were trembling. Not with fear, but with the weight of finally revealing everything. I had waited long enough. After we sat down to eat, I made small talk. Asked about work, joked about old college memories. My wife played along, even leaned into me a few times like we were still happily married. He chuckled, acted like we were still close. And that was the worst part. How easily they lied. How comfortable they had become in this double life. They had rewritten the script of our lives, and I was just the idiot still reading the original lines. But not anymore. I stood up and said I had something special planned. A surprise, I said. They looked curious, maybe even a little excited. I walked to the back of the yard, reached behind the garden wall, and pressed the remote. The projector screen rolled down silently. Their smiles started to fade. I grabbed the remote for the projector itself and hit play. At first, it was just still footage, our living room quiet. Then they saw themselves. Her on the couch. Him sitting next to her. Laughing. Whispering. That kiss. That long, intimate kiss. Right there on the screen for both of them to see. My wife gasped. He froze, burger halfway to his mouth. I didn't say a word. I just stood there and watched the color drain from their faces. My wife was the first to speak. Donald, it's not what it looks like. I laughed. I actually laughed. That line, so painfully cliché, felt like an insult to my intelligence. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. And that's just one night. I've got more. You want to keep watching. She looked like she was going to cry. He finally put down the burger. Man, listen, I didn't mean for. I cut him off. You didn't mean to fall into your best friend's marriage? You didn't mean to lie to my face for months? What exactly didn't you mean to do? Huh. Neither of them had answers. Just excuses, half-baked apologies, and empty eyes. I let the footage play in the background, the sounds of their betrayal echoing through the yard. And then I told them what came next. I turned to her first. Our marriage? It's over. The papers are already drafted. You'll find them on the kitchen counter. Don't worry, I've been fair. I'm not here to take revenge through the courts. You've already done more than enough damage. Then I looked at him. And you? You're done. Don't ever speak to me again. Don't show up at my house. Don't call. You're not my friend. You're not even a stranger. You're just a mistake I'll never make again. They both sat there in stunned silence. She tried to plead, tears rolling down her cheeks. He looked down, ashamed but not enough to speak again. I picked up the remote and shut off the projector. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. I walked inside, locked the door behind me, and left them out there together. Let them sit in the ruin they had built. Let them taste the bitterness of their own choices. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed. Really breathed. But freedom doesn't feel clean. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like standing in the ashes of everything you built, knowing it was burned by the people you trusted most. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat at the kitchen table and stared at the documents I'd prepared. Divorce papers, signed and sealed. My attorney had warned me I might regret moving this fast. He didn't know the half of it. I wasn't moving fast. I was finally catching up, and I was far from done. Because moving on wasn't just about cutting ties. It was about reclaiming my life, rebuilding from the wreckage, and finding out who I was without the lies. The hardest part wasn't exposing them. It was what came after. The next morning, I woke up to silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it fills your chest. No footsteps, no scent of coffee brewing, no soft hum of someone scrolling through their phone. Just stillness. I sat up in bed and looked around at what used to be our shared space. Her side of the closet, untouched. The photo of us on the nightstand, face down. I didn't flip it back over. I didn't need to see it. I remembered exactly what it looked like. Her smiling up at me, my arm wrapped around her. Both of us too blind to see the cracks forming behind the smiles. Or maybe I was the only one blind. Maybe she knew all along that something was missing and went looking for it in the arms of someone I once called a brother. I got up, showered, shaved, put on a clean shirt. Not for anyone else, just for myself. I had an appointment with my lawyer that afternoon to finalize everything. There wasn't going to be a messy court battle. I had made that clear. I didn't want her money, and I didn't want revenge through some drawn-out legal war. What I wanted was distance, freedom, closure. And as I sat in the waiting room, pen in hand, ready to sign away the last 8 years of my life, I felt something unexpected, peace. Not joy, not relief, but peace. Because when you've been lied to, manipulated, betrayed, and gaslit by the two people you loved most, peace feels like a revolution. She texted me 3 times that day. I didn't read the first 2. The third one just said, "Please, can we talk?" Just once. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the reply button. But what was there left to say? I had already heard everything I needed. Through whispers in the dark, secret meetings, and the quiet confirmations I found in their eyes. I deleted the message and blocked her number. I did the same to him the next day. It wasn't about bitterness anymore. It was about boundaries, about choosing not to bleed for people who didn't care if you ever stopped. Word got out slowly. A couple of our mutual friends reached out, awkwardly checking in without asking questions. They'd heard rumors, seen the social media silence, felt the sudden fracture. I kept my responses short. I wasn't looking to explain myself. I didn't know anyone the full story. What happened between me, her, and him was mine to carry and mine to bury. Weeks passed. I focused on work, on running, on rebuilding. There were nights when the weight came crashing down, when the silence felt suffocating, and I found myself sitting in the dark wondering how 2 people could betray someone who gave them everything. But those nights got fewer. The anger started to fade. Not because I forgave them, but because I was tired of carrying their shame like it was mine. Then something strange happened. One evening, I walked into a cafe to grab coffee, and the girl behind the counter smiled at me like I mattered. Not like I was broken. Not like she saw the emptiness I'd been hiding. Just a simple, warm smile. I smiled back. Nothing more. But it reminded me that there were still good people in the world. That not everyone lies. That maybe, just maybe, I hadn't lost everything. Just the things that were never really mine to begin with. I don't know where she is now, or what he's doing. I don't care. They became a closed chapter the moment I chose myself. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been through something similar, if your world's been shattered by someone you trusted, hear me when I say this. It doesn't end with them. It begins with you. Don't chase closure from the people who broke you. Don't wait for apologies that will never feel sincere. Don't carry their betrayal as your identity. You're not what they did to you. You're what you decide to become after. So, to the man who lost his best friend and his wife in a single blow, this story isn't about pain. It's about power. The quiet, unshakable kind that comes when you stop surviving and start living again. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you've ever had your heart broken in ways words can't explain, drop a comment. Let me know I'm not alone. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. There's more to come. Stories of truth, of betrayal, and of finding your way back. One piece at a time.